सभा पिनाकी मिश्रा जी, बहुत हो गया।
सरकार को विचार करना चाहिए। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, sir, for giving my party, the Biju Janata Dal, an opportunity to present our views on the first supplementary demand for grants 23-24. Mr. Chairman, sir, the demand for grants that's been presented now for supplementary demands is basically over and above the 45 lakh crores for the year that was first envisaged during the 23-24 budget. And this first supplementary demand for grants proposes an incremental cash outgo of 58,378 crores, which is an increase of 1% in expenditure over budget estimates. I compliment the Finance Minister for keeping a very tight fiscal rein over this. 1% in the first supplementary demand for grants, I think, is very, very possible and doable, and I think this House should have no difficulty at all in granting the request of the Honourable Finance Minister, particularly because most of the heads under which the demands are being sought for expansion in expenditure are all in the social sector. We have chemicals and fertilizers, which are very important, obviously, for farmers. Defence, there can be no question of anybody in the House raising exception on defence expenditure going up slightly. The consumer affairs and food public distribution, this is particularly laudable because my Chief Minister, Shri Naveen Patnaik ji, was the first who had requested the Honourable Prime Minister way back in, I think, December of 23, that starting from 24, when the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana was due to be discontinued, that it should be continued for another period of at least 3 to 5 years. And the Prime Minister acceded to that request, and it has now gone up by another 5 years. So therefore, 5,500 crores for this, for the very marginalized and the poorest sections, is absolutely welcome, and I think this House will welcome that. The additional demand for Manrega, again, is something which I believe is very, very important for the rural sector, although it does highlight the one dismal fact of there being great poverty still in the rural sector. And rural sector economy, as one of my distinguished colleagues earlier, Mr. Krishna, spoke, that the rural sector economy really hasn't picked up and kept pace with the way the urban sector has been picking up in this country. So therefore, there is a lopsided development between this India and Bharat, as it were, which is an old conundrum in this country. And that continues to obtain. And that's a matter of some concern and headache, I think, for the government. I don't know how they plan to going forward, keep a more fine balance in this regard. There is additional revenue being additional expenditure being sought for petroleum as well, for providing LPG. Again, this is welcome because this gives succor to households which are sorely in need of subsidies. Telecommunications for capital infusion, for optical fiber control-based network services, for defence services again. This is very, very laudable. The one area I could not quite figure out why it has taken such a serious jump from 18,000 crores, it's gone up by 11,000 crores, and that's a 61% hopping jump, which is the external affairs. I believe it's because of the guarantee of 9,000 crores odd given by the Exim Bank for providing loans, but I hope the Minister is able to tell the House why there has been this 61% jump in external affairs, which is a little inexplicable to me. Coming to the figures put out for the first 6 months, from April to October, for tax revenues, one of the issues I think which will concern the House and which should concern the government as well is that the GST tax revenues have been collected at only 56% of the year's target, compared to 63% last year in the same period. I don't understand why this is happening. The only obvious reason, because in an economy which is growing at 7.5% odd, the only reason this is happening is there is clearly a lot of leakage still happening. There's a lot of tax avoidance that continues to happen. And I think this is not just in GST, because if you look at the income tax numbers, there are only 9 crore tax assessees in a population of 140 crores. And out of them, the actual taxpayers, all tax assessees are not taxpayers. 3 crores odd file nil returns. So only 6.65 crore actually pay some tax. And out of that, 76% comes from only 32 lakh people, which which is 5% of the taxpayers. So therefore, the tax base is clearly still exceptionally narrow compared to this vast population that we have here. And the hope of the government of cash shrinkage in the economy clearly hasn't worked out. 32 lakh crore today is the cash in circulation, and many of us are witnessing the kind of cash that's being pulled out of cupboards. So therefore, if 32 lakh crores is double of what it was in 2016 when demonetization took place, when it was 16 lakh crores. So it's a double of 16 lakh crores today's cash in circulation. And therefore, there is clearly the tax collection system and the tax laws clearly in this country are not sufficing. I know that my colleague from Mr. Nishikant Dubey earlier had lamented that people in the House are speaking on everything except the demand for grants. I have tried to keep it to the demand for grants, but this has been a convention of the House cutting across party lines that people do during supplementary demand for grants, speak on other issues relating to their state as well. So there is a breach of that so-called rule, and therefore I will stick to the breach and give 5 of my state's problems in this regard to you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the Minister. Number 1 is the release of state-specific grants as per the recommendation of the 15th Finance Commission. The 15th Finance Commission had recommended 1,775 crores for Odisha during 22-23 to 25-26. This includes 800 crores towards early warning dissemination system for cyclone-prone areas. This money is, and everybody in this House knows how Odisha virtually every year or every alternate year at least is prone to massive cyclones on the eastern coast. And therefore, this is of absolutely paramount importance, and we would request the Union Government through through this House and through the Honourable Minister and through you, Mr. Chairman, to expedite release of these state-specific grants, including those that are specific needs of the state as identified by the 15th Finance Commission. Number 2, and there are 5 of these, so number 2 is centrally sponsored schemes. There should be an advance indication, and this is not just Odisha. I think every state has the same lament here. We as members of parliament represent our different states, and all states have the same problem, that there should be an advance indication about the annual allocation for each state at the time of budget formulation, so that the states will be able to prepare their budgets on a more realistic basis. What is happening today is a complete ad hoc functioning through the year, as a result of which the release of funds don't match the allocation, and we in Odisha have experienced such irregular flow of funds in many of the schemes that the actual central assistance eventually turns out to be substantially lower than what was either approved or anticipated at in the beginning of the year. So therefore, we urge the Honourable Minister, through you, Mr. Chairman, that the Government of India should evolve a single window system for communication of annual allocation and sharing pattern of all centrally sponsored schemes to the states, and ensure release of central assistance as per commitment at the earliest. Number 3, again, this is now specific to Odisha. We've had huge trouble because the delinking of 8 centrally sponsored schemes from central support. Number 2, or B rather, A is this, B, discontinuance of special plan for KBK. That's the Koraput, Bolangir, Kalahandi districts, which are the most backward districts in this country, and central assistance for IAP districts. The C is the abolition of the normal central assistance, and a steep increase in the state share of centrally sponsored schemes has imposed a severe financial burden on the state. So with natural disasters perpetually besetting Odisha, we request the central government that now that you've done away with this whole issue of special category status to states, kindly at least work on what Mr. Naveen Patnaik has repeatedly requested the centre, that give us and other states like us, 3 or 4 other states which sorely needed special focus status, so that at least there is some immediate succour to us. Number 4, Mr. Chairman, the restoration of central assistance for area development programs in left-wing states. And these include not just Odisha, we are including in this both Telangana, Andhra, as well as Chhattisgarh, which are our neighbouring states, which have the same problem. So the central government discontinuance of central assistance for area development programs like special plans for KBK, backward region, IAP, for LWE, this left-wing extreme states, has affected the development programs of all these states. So I speak on behalf of all these states when I request the central government for the centrally assistance schemes of these area development programs. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, Odisha is a pioneer, as the entire House knows, in power sector reform. Since 2000, when Mr. Naveen Patnaik first took over, almost 24 years ago, 5 terms he's had now, going into a 6th term, and he will be the longest serving Chief Minister after August 2024. He will be the longest serving Chief Minister in this country, and I dare say that that's a record which is unlikely to be broken for a large state or a medium-sized state like Odisha. Mr. Pawan Chamling from Sikkim is the only person now who has served longer than him, and Mr. Patnaik will cross that in August 2024. May God bless him with a long life. Now, Odisha is a pioneer in power sector reforms, and we have adopted the PPP model in all areas of distribution, etc. But the state has been, while it's been a beneficiary of some rural electrification schemes, we have been kept out of the IPDS and the Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana. So therefore, the DISCOMs in Odisha are being deprived of the revamped distribution sector scheme, which is not helpful at all for the consumers because prices continue to remain inordinately high.
Thank you
Therefore,
very much.
for lower tariff for electricity for the consumers at large, I request the Honourable Chairman to the Minister to kindly through you to the Minister to look into this aspect. And I'm very grateful to Mr. Chairman for having given me the time to present my views on the first supplementary demand for grants. Thank you very much.
Shri B.B. Patil ji.